All right, let's talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. So to start with, we got a chart that kind of gives you an explanation of how this works. When you have two lines that are parallel, they must have the same slope. So parallel lines have the same slope. You can see the example there. You can see the two lines L and M. And when you look at those lines, they look like they're parallel, right? They're not going to intersect. They're not going to cross with each other. And you can see they both have a slope of 4/3, which is why they're parallel. So parallel lines have the same slope. You need to remember that. Next, let's talk about perpendicular lines. So perpendicular are when two lines intersect and they create four right angles. And you can look here at lines L and M. You can see that they're perpendicular to each other, that they create right angles when they intersect. And when you have perpendicular lines, their slopes are what are called opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. And what opposite reciprocals means is they're basically going to be, one is going to be, so for example, the slope of line L you can see is 4/3. So line N is going to be that fraction flipped and the sign changed. So if a line L is 4/3, its perpendicular slope would be -3/4. You flipped the fraction and changed the sign. So parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. All right. So let's answer some questions here. Our first question is, it says one line passes through the points 4, -3, and -8, 0. And another passes through the points -1, -1, and -2, 6. Are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So to answer this question, what we need to be able to do is we need to know the slopes of the line. And thankfully, one thing we could do is we could get a coordinate plane, we could graph these lines, find the slopes. Another thing is we learned how to find the slope of the line between 2 points. Remember, it was this formula right here, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So first of all, so we can find the slope. So let's find the slope of line 1. So I'm actually going to erase that. I don't think that helps me here. So I'm going to do line 1 here in red. So I'm going to label this point x1, y1, and this point x2, y2. And I'm going to use the formula to find the slope. So line 1. So it would be 0 minus -3, y2 minus y1, over -8 minus 4, x2 minus x1. I'm going to do that math. 0 minus -3 is actually 3. -8 minus 4 is -12. So if I simplify that, that would be -1/4. So the slope of line 1 is -1/4. So now I'm going to do, trying to click down there and it went to the next slide. So now I'm going to switch colors here. I'm going to go with green. I'm going to do line 2, the second line, and the other passes through the points -1, -1, and -2, -6. So line 2, I'm going to call it. And that's going to be, I'm going to label the points here, x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to do that math. So y2 minus y1 would be 6 minus -1. And then x2 minus x1 would be, so -2 minus -1. So I'm going to do this math. 6 minus -1 would be 7. -2 minus -1 would be -1. So the slope of this line is 7. -7. Sorry, -7, my fault. So the answer to this question, are the lines perpendicular, parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Well, so the one has a slope of -1/4. The second line has a slope of -7. So those are not the same slope. They're also not negative reciprocals. So in turn, this would be neither. These two lines are not parallel, nor are they perpendicular. It would be neither. So let's go to our next question. One line passes through the points negative 3, 14, and 1, negative 2. And another passes through the points 0, negative 3, and negative 2, 5. Are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So same kind of question where we're going to find the slopes of each line. So I'm going to label my first line here, x1, y1, and x2, y2. So line 1, and it's going to be, so y2 minus y1, so negative 2 minus 14 over 1 minus negative 3. I'm going to do that math here. Negative 2 minus 14 would be negative 16. 1 minus negative 3 would end up being 4. 1 plus 3 is 4. So my slope is negative 4. Let's do our next one here. Line, I'm going to change my color here. So line 2, I'm going to label x1, y1, x2, y2, label my points. So it'll be 5 minus negative 3 over negative 2 minus 0. So I'm going to do this math. 5 minus negative 3 is 8. Negative 2 minus 0 is negative 2. And 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. So this one, the two lines both have a slope of negative 4. So that means that they have the same slope. These two lines will be parallel. All right, let's move on to our next one. So this one line passes through the points 3, 3, and negative 6, negative 3, and another passes through the points 2, negative 8, and negative 6, 4. Are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? All right, I want you to pause this and try it on your own. All right, you should have tried this one on your own. So I'm going to do it real quick here. Label my points in line 1 here. So it's going to be negative 3 minus 3 over negative 6 minus 3. I'm going to do that subtraction. The board got all messed up. Sorry, having some technical difficulties here. So it would have been negative 3 minus 3 and negative 6 minus 3. So that would be negative 6 over negative 9. The negatives cancel out and this simplifies and it becomes 2/3. So now I'm going to do line 2 here, the x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to do line 2. So that would be 4 minus negative 8 over negative 6 minus 2. I'm going to do that math. 4 minus negative 8, that's 4 plus 8, which is 12. Negative 6 minus negative 2 would be negative 8. So this one can simplify. I can divide each of these by 4, and it would end up being 3 over 2 with a negative sign out in front. And you can see these two slopes. So line 1, we got a slope of 2/3. Line 2, we got a slope of negative 3/2. These are perpendicular because those two slopes are negative reciprocals. So the first one's 2/3. The second one is 2/3 flipped, which would be 3/2. And since the first one's positive, the second one's negative, so their signs are opposite. So they are negative reciprocals. So this would be perpendicular. All right. So let's keep moving here. Find the equation of the line perpendicular to y equals negative 2/5 x minus 3 that passes through the point 2, 8. So what were we told here? We're asked to find the equation of a line perpendicular to, and then they give us a line right here, y equals negative 2/5 x minus 3, where negative 2/5 is my slope. So if my slope is negative 2/5, what would the perpendicular slope? So the perpendicular, so perpendicular slope. Remember, that's the negative reciprocal. So I'm going to flip that. Negative 2/5 will become 5 over 2. And then I change the sign. Since it was negative 2/5, this will be positive 5/2. So my slope is 5/2. And I know it goes through the point 2, 8. So what I can do is I can write an equation in point slope form. Because what do I know? I know the slope, which is 5/2, and I know the point, which would be 2, 8. So I'm going to fill this in. So my slope is 5/2, and my point was 2, 8. So my x1 was 2, my y1 was 8. So it's going to be x minus 2, y minus 8. So we've successfully written an equation. Now, one thing I want to point out, a lot of times you're going to be asked, especially if this is like a multiple choice question, a lot of time the answers might actually be in slope-intercept form. So you need to be able to quickly convert point slope form to slope intercept form. Remember, slope intercept form, if I write it over here, is y equals mx plus b. So how do we get from y minus 8 equals 5/2 x minus 2 to y equals mx plus b to slope intercept form? All we got to do is, it's 2 steps really. Step 1 is distribute the 5/2 times each thing in parentheses. So this will be 5/2 x minus, and then 5/2 times 2 would be 5. So now I've got y minus 8 equals 5/2 x minus 5. You can see I'm almost in slope intercept form. My problem is this minus 8 here. So all I got to do is add 8 to both sides. And now I've got y equals 5/2 x plus 3. And now my equation is in slope-intercept form. Because again, the directions weren't clear in this question, but often that's what you're going to have to do, is put the, when they say find the equation, they mean slope-intercept form. So you need to be able to manipulate an equation from point slope to slope-intercept. And you can see it was just 2 steps. Step 1 was distribute the slope through the parentheses. Then you needed to add the term, or add or subtract the term with the y. All right, let's do the next one. Write the equation of a line that is parallel to the line 2x minus 4y equals 8 and goes through the point 3, 0. So this is similar to the last question, but we're asked for parallel to this line right here. So the first thing I need to know is the slope. Remember, parallel lines have the same slope. So if I can find the slope of this 2x minus 4y equals 8, I can find the slope of my line. So remember, so this equation is in standard form. It's ax plus by equals c. It is in standard form. And if I know that, I can figure out the slope. Remember, the slope is negative a over b. So I can take my a, which is negative 2, which would be 2, but then I make it negative, so negative 2. My b, which, see, since it's minus 4, it's negative 4. So I simplify that, my negatives cancel out. So my slope is 1/2. So now I have enough information, because if the slope of 2x minus 4y equals 8 is 1/2, the slope of my line is also going to be 1/2 because they're parallel. So I'm going to write out point slope form here, because I know a point, 3, 0, and I know my slope, 1/2. So I'm going to fill in the information. So 3, 0, so I'm going to label 3 would be x1, 0 would be y1. So y, or x minus 3, y minus 0. So I'm going to put this in slope-intercept form like the last question. So I'm going to distribute the 1/2. So this will be 1/2 x minus 1/2 times 3 would be 3/2. And then over on the left side, I have y minus 0. Y minus 0 is just y. So I'm actually already in slope-intercept form. This one was only one step because we had a y minus 0, which would just be y. And we've successfully written that equation in slope-intercept form. All right, last question. Which of these lines are perpendicular? So to be able to answer this equation, we need to know the slopes of these lines. And they're in different forms here. So our first one, line A, y equals 3x minus 1, that's in slope-intercept form. So it's pretty easy to know the slope of this line is 3. So line B, so we need to figure out the slope of line B. This is in standard form. So it's ax plus by equals c. Remember, negative a over b is the slope. So that would be, our a in this case is 1. There's nothing in front of the x, so we know that would be 1x. So it's going to be negative 1 over our b is 3. So our slope is negative 1/3. And then finally, let's do the last one. You might already know the answer, but let's do the last one. Line C is going to be, again, this is in standard form, so negative a over b. So it would be negative 3 over 1, which would be negative 3. So I'm going to write all of these as fractions. The first one is 3 over 1. The second one is negative 1/3. The third one is negative 3 over 1. So which of these two lines are perpendicular? So perpendicular, remember, is going to be the negative reciprocal. It's going to be the fraction flipped and the sign changed. So we look at that, it's going to be lines A and B. Because line A has a slope of 3 over 1. Line B has a slope of 1 over 3, but it's negative, so the sign switch. So which of the lines are perpendicular? Lines A and B. And that is it.